Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus the community is the star of the silly car Jeep. So it's all of the bounciness and fall-overiness as we go to the first corner at Camino. 3 or 4 cars are on their sides, on their roofs. It's really hard to pick a camera angle for this opening lap or this opening first corner because so much mayhem goes on in front of me. Somebody had a spin, not sure if they were on their roof at some point, quite probably. I'm on 2 wheels. There's Daniel actually turned up for all 3 of these races, which was amazing. It was a miracle. But he's in the black one with the big blue, with the big FailRace logo on the side that you saw crashed on the infield there. So yeah, the opening lap at Camino was a little bit busy. You can see in the background there's a big angry field of cars. Yeah, I had to use Camino as this is the track that these cars were kind of built for, and it was always likely to be mayhem as I have a few issues getting my car turned in any way, shape or form. And I think at this point I'm up to 3rd, which I was pretty pleased with. I started sort of mid-pack and had got away without too much damage into the first corner. Our leader had got pretty lucky. I think the guy started on pole, managed to avoid the mayhem into the first corner and was now just not getting into trouble. There's me collecting the wall further back. But yeah, our leader, like with all of these races, if you could get to the front and not make any mistakes, it was so important not to make any mistakes with these cars. And a lot of that is down to luck, just hitting the bumps right. I will say another thing, we are running on limited damage, so there is still some form of encouragement not to crash, shall we say. However, it does mean that you can roll the cars back over. So if you do end up on your roof, you could flip the cars back over. Also, with 100% damage, the cars would still run just about all right. But you still lose power, but you would still be fairly mobile. Daniel then had another big off, and you're going to have a flip as he goes sideways on the grass and tumbles across the road. Got very lucky not to collect anybody, as someone in the background as well gets things a little bit wrong. There's another guy coming in and just about kind of get things stopped. One of the real issues with these cars is if you see an accident in front of you, you see a car in front of you that you want to try and avoid, or you see something you want to try and avoid, you can't always do very much about it. These cars are built, they're designed to be very bouncy, so when it hits a bump, the front wheels often end up in the air, and then you have no steering and you have very little brakes. Well, you can have all 4 wheels in the air at some points on these tracks. So yeah, when things go wrong, it is very, very hard to correct it. There's another Jeep has a spin. These cars are incredibly hard to kind of sort out if things start going a little bit wrong. The first corner here is also very, very dangerous. There's a really nasty bump on your way into it, as this guy finds out, goes straight on, a little bit of lag, but no, it's the bumps that are the real problem with these cars. Sure, they do lean a lot. If you go around a corner, you can make them fall over on a completely flat surface by going around a corner, but it's the bumps that cause real issues. When the car, once the suspension kind of starts bouncing, that's when you have massive problems. This guy here went from I think about 3rd to 7th back to 3rd again, all within the space of 10 seconds. It's so hard to keep up with what people were doing, what was going on in this blooming race, as if you're in the middle of the pack you would change places so often as someone makes a mistake, as you make a mistake, and yeah, it was really hard keeping track of everything that was going on. I then found a wall and managed to have a little bit of a spin off the wall. Yeah, this first section down here is incredibly bumpy and incredibly fast. The car in the background there also scrapes along the wall. That mistakes are so common. It's so easy to get the car all out of shape coming down there. We almost had a proper overtake here. Kind of, sort of. The guy sort of went off the road a little bit, but they're side by side. There's 2 cars racing properly, and then it's all gone wrong. Yeah, there was very little in this first race of proper kind of racing, and one of the big issues with these cars is that they tend to tricycle. They tend to go on 3 wheels an awful lot, and when they do that, you find that they decide, oh, I want to go left or I want to go right, and somehow everybody nearly gets through that. I thought they were going to get through there, not quite. But no, when these cars decide they're going left or going right, you have no say in it at all. It is going to go that direction and you can't stop it, probably because it's going to bounce itself onto 3 wheels, and if there's somebody next to you, you can end up in completely unavoidable accidents. Now, there were a few backmarkers as well, a few people that got a bit unlucky, had to take a trip through the pit lane, and this is one of them getting it a little bit wrong, and me trying to avoid him, and nothing I could do. I had my car, was all out of shape. I was trying to brake and trying to turn, but as it was bouncing down there, I just can't stop it. Couldn't get it to do anything, and both of us ended up on their roofs, and I think that killed both of our engines. If you do have 100% damage, your car is still movable, but of course you do lose an awful lot of power in the background. Somebody else flips it into the first corner. That's an unusual place to roll it. Like turning into the first corner, you normally roll it long before you ever actually get to that corner. But yeah, these cars, they're huge amounts of fun, incredibly tricky. We've got another one grazing off the wall and managing to find his way onto his roof. That's a pretty spectacular flip, and still he's rolling. And again, somebody just about gets away with it, but the car behind him, trying to avoid the recovering Jeep, can't stop his car in time because it's bouncing all over the place. That's pretty much a recurring theme with this opening round. That you just can't avoid something necessarily. I mean, you try, you can see it. It's not that there's a problem seeing the thing, but you just can't get these cars to do anything. Our leader, though, as somebody tumbles away in front of him, had a very clean race. Nobody got through this race without rolling. At the start of the race, I'd made a bet. I was going to give anybody who could complete this race without rolling 1,000,000 credits, provided they finish within the end of race time. That's a minute and a half from the time that the leader finished. He got very, very near rolling on that final corner. But no, our leader, I think he rolled a couple of times. Nobody won the 1,000,000 credit prize. I think only 5 or 6 cars finished. The end of race time on all of these is a minute and a half. That's the general thing that I use with these. That normally means that a car that's a lap down should be able to finish on most of our races. And 5 cars finished this race, or 6 cars, can't remember. So yeah, our leader did a very good job of staying out of trouble and not rolling too many times. And of course, without a broken engine, that was really quite key. We move on to race 2 at the Silverstone International Circuit. Again, no really good camera views to show the absolute carnage that unfolds after the first corner. Everybody gets around the first corner all right, and then everything goes a little bit wrong as they try to sort themselves out. And as I mentioned earlier, with the cars kind of choosing their direction when you're trying to go 3 wide down here, which you will often do in normal racing situations out of that first corner, in these silly Jeeps doesn't really work. I think 3 or 4 cars ended up on their roof. On the run into the second or whatever. I can't remember the blooming numbers on corners. But yeah, there was a few crashes on there. However, overall, Silverstone should be an easier track. It is a lot flatter surface. There's not the hills, not the bumps, and, well, the jumps, as it happens at Camino around here. So the car should be a little bit easier. Of course, it is still very possible to roll these vehicles if somebody's Jeep's decided it wanted to go visit the wall. I think there are magnets in these walls. That would make more sense. That's what it is. It's causing the cars to crash. Further back, we have almost a proper race going on. Someone's kind of going defensive. Somebody's trying to find a way past. And is he going to get a sort of a cutback-ish going on here? Yes, he is, almost. They're going to go side by side. And look at that. That is the first proper, genuine overtake of the afternoon, I think. I didn't see any at Camino. Mostly what would happen is somebody would fall off the road and somebody would make up the place. However, the overtake, there we go, that's better English, lasted all of, 10 seconds before he managed to roll it through bridge. It's not uncommon to see cars roll through bridge. I've rolled a fair few there. But it is quite rare to see a car roll without touching the curb. Oh dear, I do like these Jeeps. I'm quite proud. This is one of the setups I'm most proud of for its absolutely stupidness. And again, we have another example of a car losing control just because the vehicle decided it was going to go left and he couldn't stop it and then ended up going too far right. There is an incredibly near miss in there. I have no idea how on earth they got away with that. That looked about as close as we had with the Bel Airs. That was ridiculously close. Background, there's another Jeep that is tumbled over. There were many tumbling Jeeps in this race. But the key thing here, really, with all of these races was not to get any engine damage. In the background, there's another 2 have gone. The first gear camera crew are not really focusing on the right things. It was really hard for getting these damn replay cameras to kind of show what's going on, as there were all sorts of crashing. But yeah, not having engine damage is really, really important in this race, because while your car will still work, if it has 100% engine damage, you lose an awful lot of performance. And if you actually want to do well in this race, you kind of need that little extra sort of straight line speed, should we say. Coming around the final corner, and ooh, he just saved that. That is a very, very good save. That's probably save of the day. I'm not going to have an overtake of the day as much as a very impressive save on that one. Yeah, it is possible to stop these things rolling over if you're quick enough, if you can counter steer. If you do that, you are going to go kind of off the track and you are going to slow yourself down by doing that, but you can save these sometimes. If you're quick enough thinking, you can get them to stop rolling. I had a pretty big lead up until I caught a bump slightly wrong. I didn't even know there was a bump there. Not sure what caused it to kind of jump along the ground, and then I did a 3 or 4 rolls in it, probably not 4, but yeah, it tumbled about for a bit and I did recover. However, I had now sustained quite heavy damage to my car. I think I now had 100% engine damage, and seeing how much that slowed me down in the first race, it was off to the pits with the fairly broken Jeep. Yeah, I didn't know there was a bump coming into that first chicane. I hadn't hit it before. I think this was about like 3. Didn't realise there was such a big bump there. Just caught it slightly wrong. And yeah, that's what can happen with these Jeeps. It only takes a little thing. There's another sort of clean, sort of proper overtake there going into bridge, which was somewhat of a rarity. And then we're going to have so close to a good save. That was, if that had stayed on its wheels, that would have been the best save of the afternoon, evening, day, whatever. But it fell over onto its side, and then in recovering caused another crash as well. This guy waits to let the guy through. Yeah, as I mentioned in the first round, broken vehicles and trying to recover your vehicle onto the track, yeah, that is a real problem. with these things, because you just don't have that control of them. Again, somebody's trying to come on the track here. They did well to avoid each other. This is the winner from race 1 who is making his way through the field. He got broken very early on, taking a trip through the pits, as he too very nearly rolls it through there. And now we are going to have a proper overtake, and this is by far the overtake of the afternoon, going around the outside of the first corner in very bouncy Jeeps. Well done to both of them there for not having any contact. The guy in the green Jeep did have fairly significant engine damage, was pretty slow in a straight line, but to get around the outside of the first corner at Silverstone is pretty impressive. To do it in these things is, yeah, that's pretty damn good, I have to say. But yeah, as far as competition for overtake of the afternoon, there wasn't really a huge amount going on. I think I was around 4th, 3rd at this point. I was making my way back up through the field after having repaired myself, and was trying to kind of pick off some of the broken vehicles. The advantage of going through the pit lane, yes, you will lose some time, but then you will have a functioning car, which is always nice. It was my turn to get caught out by somebody else having a bit of a panicky moment. Couldn't do anything about that. He couldn't do anything about that either. His Jeep just turned. And then in my recovery, my Jeep had one of its panicky moments and I caused a crash as well. So sorry to whoever it was that I killed in that. Yeah, the Jeeps have a mind of their own. If you haven't downloaded this car, by the way, I'll put a thing in the description to go on the FailRace account storefront, and you can find this car. You can download it and have a go. See if you can do any better than us lot could do with it. Now here Daniel is trying to go around the outside. I think this is for second. Trying to go around the outside of the final corner. That's a long way to go around in any car, let alone in the silly Jeeps. However, he does manage to do a pretty textbook sort of cutback, whatever you want to call it, which is another fairly good overtake. We have a back marker getting himself into trouble. I don't know how Daniel managed to not spin in that sort of collision. If that had been anybody else or at any other point in the race, I'm fairly sure Daniel's car would have gone around. Also, possibly a little bit of lag involved. As ever with these things, collisions can always be a little bit laggy and a little bit dodgy when it comes to Forza. I love the sticker on the side of this Jeep. It is it's a fantastic sticker on this car. While there was less sort of rolling, it was still quite possible as we go into the final corner, and managed to roll it before even getting to the corner. Yeah, these Jeeps are fun. They're very odd things to drive. We were kind of getting a little bit more used to them by this point. Having done, I don't know, driving 15 probably minutes with these things, you are kind of starting to get used to driving them, and we're getting a little bit better at not falling over everywhere. And of course it does help that the track here is considerably flatter. Anyway, our leader had not quite stayed out of as much trouble as the guy he did in the first race. However, he hadn't had any engine damage the entire way through, and that is really quite key. If you take 100% engine damage in these things, you're going to be very, very slow in the straight, or you can tour the pit lane, but of course you're going to lose time in the pit lane. So yeah, this guy stayed out of trouble. Once he got to the lead as well, he didn't make any mistakes, didn't roll, didn't do anything silly. and managed to take a fairly comfortable victory as enough time to turn around and do the showboaty finish of finishing in reverse. So yeah, he had a fairly easy race. Further back though, and Daniel was in second at this point and very nearly had a spin into the final corner. Again, the Jeep's just made up its mind as he tries to exit the final corner. He has a roll and tumble and now a bit of a fight to try and get it onto its wheels. Not quite, nearly, and there we go. Luckily he was far enough ahead of the guy in third not to have too many issues. Me, I was trying to catch third. I think the guy in third, as someone in the background has a crash, the guy in third had a roll earlier in the lap. I was pushing a little bit too hard, and I have an identical flip to Daniel in the final corner. I was a little bit too eager to get going again, and I dropped a place, and I was moved down to fourth. Not bad considering everything I'd had in that race, but yeah, it was a fairly eventful Silverstone. We move on to our final race at Laguna Seca, and well, everybody was kind of worried about this track, primarily because of the corkscrew, but the corkscrew wasn't actually the issue here. We'll get to that in a minute. Again, the first corner is utter chaos. It normally is at Laguna because the track's so wide. You often find in races you'll be going 3 wide into that corner. Of course, in these silly Jeeps that was quite difficult, and there were a few incidences, although there weren't as many people, well, I think anybody actually rolled in the first corner. There was just a few issues getting the cars actually stopped. Again, if you start hitting the bumps, and it is kind of hilly into that first corner, and then yeah, you just can't get the car stopped in time, you'll have some big crashes. A few people are doing a bit of rallycross, building a few sandcastles in the distance, in the background, and I'm making my way through the grid. I should point out actually at the start of this third race, you might have seen it on the very opening clip. Someone didn't go off the start line. Luckily they were right at the back, and I think they only affected one car. But yeah, it's one of those unfortunate things. If that happened at the front of the grid in this race, it would have been rather chaotic, shall we say. It would be mayhem with a non-moving Jeep right at the very front around here. The corkscrew, this is what people were worried about, because it is an awful lot of elevation change going through here. However, because the corner is so slow, as I got it all wrong, you have to do a lot of braking before you ever get to the corkscrew. It's not really that bad, because you've slowed down so much to actually get turned into the corner. You don't have too many issues with the Jeep rolling over. Somebody's gone to investigate another barrier, so the corkscrew wasn't really a particular problem around here. And apart from that, this track is relatively flat except for the first corner. The first corner is a nightmare, but we'll come to that one again in a bit. Daniel had a fairly quiet start of this race. He started fairly near the front and was now up into second. There were a few interesting corners. This one up here that Daniel's got around, that's deceptively bumpy. The camera doesn't really show quite how bumpy it is, and of course these cars react to every little bump. You find bumps in the track that you didn't know about before. The corkscrew though, as you can see, really isn't any trouble. Further back there was a big old battle going on. This is around, I think, 4th place maybe. I can't remember. You change places so often in this race, it's really hard to keep track of who was where and at what time. But this is probably the closest we had to a proper sort of race with these cars. And credit to everybody. Like, if you haven't driven these cars, these things are absolutely ridiculous. So no point saying that it's all because we're all useless drivers. These things are really, really hard to drive. There was a little bit of contact, and then there was a pirouetting Jeep that somehow we all managed to avoid. Yeah, these things are really very, very hard to drive, and if you haven't driven them, I do recommend you give it a download, you give it a try, and see for yourself just how ridiculous these are. Go over the first corner, there is massive airtime. Good God, that is airtime of the day. There was a huge jump in there. A good couple of feet off the ground at one point, I think. That is a very big jump through there. As far as actually sort of normal rolls go, they weren't as common around here, although someone still found a way of rolling going into the first corner. That's got to be the slowest speed roll I think I've ever seen with these cars. That really wasn't going very fast and still managed to find its way onto its roof. Yeah, the real problem with this circuit is the first corner. As you go over that crest, once the front starts bouncing, that's when you are in considerable amounts of trouble. Daniel then found another place to have an accident, coming over the crest in towards the corkscrew, taking a little bit too much speed, broke a little bit too late, and again, once the car's in the air, then you're going to have a really big accident, because you just can't get it stopped, you can't get it turned, you can't do anything with it, and you're at the mercy of the Forza gods. So Daniel's now dropped back down to third. I think he was leading at one point, but yeah, it was very hard to be consistent with these cars, because you never know. If you take a corner slightly differently on a different lap, there might just be a bump there that'll throw you all off course. But that's half of the fun of them, and you certainly do learn car control with these things. Admittedly, slightly odd car control, but yeah, they're an experience to try and drive these ones. It's Daniel's turn to get caught out over the first corner again. Just caught the bump a little bit wrong and spent a long time on two wheels before careening into the wall as somebody else finds the same accident spot. Yeah, it was... If a car was going to roll, it was going to be into the first corner. There's another car going over that crest on two wheels. Yeah, I would have loved to have just a fixed camera just pointed at that first corner and just watching all of the carnage unfold as they flew over that. Because, yeah, these things are pretty quick. They've got 600 horsepower, or they've got quite a lot of horsepower. They're the top of A-class. They are pretty rapid. They're four-wheel drive. So, yeah, they certainly do shift. This battle has been going on for quite a while now. This GB car and the black one with the great sticker on it. I can't remember what it says. Something about rolling. Yeah, this has been an actual proper sort of racy, drivery battle. There was overtakes, kind of. And yeah, they swapped places throughout the race. Daniel, I think, is behind them at this point. Yeah, they were still racing, even despite the vehicles. There was still actually some racing going on. And yeah, they swapped places throughout the entire race. At this point, the white car is now leading the pair of them. I think this is around 6th, maybe, possibly. I'd managed to work my way up into a podium position by just trying not to make any mistakes. However, on the final lap, I think it was, I thought everything had gone wrong when I clipped the tyre wall on the inside and spun off into the wall, and then the car behind me did an exact copy, and almost down to the finishing position in the tyre bundle down there. That's pretty damn impressive. I don't think you could do that if you tried that level of synchronisation going on with these two. Yeah, I got let off the hook with that one, and I was going to end up in third. Our leader, though, again, got to the front, didn't make any mistakes on the first couple of laps, kept his engine. I don't think he rolled at all in this race, actually. The million credit prize was only for the first round, because I knew Camino was going to be really, really tricky. But yeah, you got to the front. If you don't make any silly mistakes, don't damage your engine. That was so important in this race. And then you could have, well, a fairly straightforward run to the end. I wouldn't say easy. It's never easy with these cars. He's now trying to get it to wheelie, and instead kind of bouncing the back end of the car. But there we go. He is across the line. I think I ended up somewhere down the order. I ended up in third, which isn't too bad, all things considered, really. Daniel was to not have such a good finishing position in this race after that rather spectacular crash over the first, I guess you could say, kind of first corner. Not really sure. The kink off the start line, probably a better way. I love how all the cars are going in two wheels into wherever number corner that is. Unfortunately, somebody had spun in front of him, and there was very, very little you can do about that one. And in that crash, it also damaged his engine quite considerably, and he ended up dropping down to 10th. So not the best of luck in that race, but overall it was a pretty fun evening. They're pretty tricky cars to drive, but I think everybody enjoyed it. Not so much of the close kind of racing that you're used to in these, but still fairly good fun. Anyway, that is it for this week's FailRace versus the community. The next event will be held, if I can just get the calendar up. No, computer, don't freeze on me now. The next event shall be held on Thursday the 17th of October. It will start at 7 PM British summer time. The cars that we'll be running are classic cars. These are vehicles made before 1979. I will be setting the game type so that it's only for cars made before that. So yeah, they are the cars you're allowed to be using. It is going to be in B class, and there are going to be some banned cars for this one, just to keep things fair, to keep things interesting, and so that everybody doesn't turn up in the same blooming vehicle, because it gets on my nerves when we do this. The cars which are banned are the Lotus Elan, the Lotus 11, and the Ferrari California. They are the cars which I'm going to ban at this point. I may add to that list because I think I've forgotten something. Oh yeah, the Alpha 33. You can do the intercooler glitch with it to get it into B class. You're not allowed to run one of them. And there was another one that I think I've forgotten. I can't remember. I'll put all the information up on the forums of the banned cars in case I have missed any. So yeah, if you want to take part in this, then you can go to our forums under FailRace versus the community. There is a sign up section for that. You go there, you can sign up for that, and that is how we take entrances. As I've said many times with these, we are doing everything via the forums because it is easier to keep track of all of the stuff. It's just so much easier for me to keep track of this all in one place. However, that is it for today, so thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.